Okay, thanks. We have our next presenter, Mr. Frank Clegg. He's a founder of Canadians for Safe Technology, which is a volunteer-based organization which seeks to raise awareness of health issues regarding wireless technology. So Mr. Clegg, you may proceed.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Do I just ask you to forward the slides for me?
Sure, you can. Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, I thank the Regulatory Authority of Bermuda for the opportunity to speak. I really want to talk about the industry perspective. And also I have some recommendations I hope you will consider. The next slide, please. I have spent my entire career in the technology sector. And most recently, I retired as the president of Microsoft Canada, and I've seen the tremendous benefits that technology can provide. I've also seen the potential harm if technology is not implemented correctly. And after spending several months interviewing and personally meeting with experts from organizations such as Harvard, Yale, Columbia, University of Toronto, advisor to the World Health Organization, lead scientific writer for Al Gore's team that won the Nobel Prize, I've come to the conclusion that wireless technology is not safe the way we are implementing it today, and I'm particularly concerned about 5G. That's why I co-founded C4ST, and I've also joined the Business Advisory Group for the Environmental Health Trust. Next slide, please. I don't expect you to take my word for this, though. There have been scientists and medical professionals from around the world. You can see two highlights here. The 250 scientists from 44 nations who have in total published over 2,000 papers about the harm to humans and the environment from wireless radiation, have put their reputations on the line, signing an appeal to the UN and its member states. In addition, 400 scientists from over 40 nations have signed a formal appeal calling for a moratorium on 5G in the European Union. You will hear more experts. Dr. Davis talked about some of the concerns. I'm particularly concerned about cancer. The National Institute of Health funded the US National Toxicology Program, a $30 million study over many years that showed clear evidence of harm, their highest category that they have in rats, which are used as a prototype for humans, and also showed damage at the DNA level. In the appendix to my presentation, I've got more detailed concerns and scientific studies to talk about this potential harm. The point I will make that all the concerns on 2G, 3G, and 4G and LTE actually apply to 5G technology as well. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about my industry. I think there is an unbelievably privileged position my industry holds. Unlike the automotive, pharmaceutical, or chemical industries, we don't have to prove our technology is safe. All we say is it's safe if used. We meet federal guidelines. We don't say it's safe, and you have to use it correctly. We hide warnings inside devices. We introduce new technology almost at will, and other government agencies or other organizations are forced to pay for the damage or harmful effects or to monitor it. There's a tremendous amount of influence on the legislative process to stop anything that stops or prevents the rollout of technology. I believe that this is going to change. I think my industry was going to come under additional scrutiny as we consider to see more security breaches. The World Health Organization is on record to update their evaluation of RF radiation because of the NTP study and others. And I think you're starting to see a shift in corporate responsibility from the public, expecting corporations to be aware of their input and their impact on the environment. I have seen again in my appendix, you'll see very specific papers questioning the industry influence on organizations such as ICNIRP, the EMF project. The US FCC has been called the most captured agency in the US. Again, the next slide, please. I'd like to congratulate Bermuda on its rollout and its moratorium on 5G, and my understanding of a very extensive network of fiber that I hope you can continue to invest in. I'm proposing, one of the recommendations the committee consider is continuing this moratorium on 5G until three things are sorted out. Other than the IRX, the International Agency for the Research on Cancer analysis back in 2011, there's never been an agency, whether it's in the US, the UK, Australia, or Canada, that has done a full review of the scientific evidence that meets international standards. And I think Bermuda has an opportunity to lead the world in asking for that to come. This also should include protecting the wildlife and the environment. There has never been, we've heard significant amount of information and hype from my industry about the trillions of dollars of benefit from 5G. There has been no publication or no analysis that I'm aware of that looks at the other side of that equation and all the potential harm that 5G can cause. We know there will be increased healthcare costs. We know there will be lost productivity. The security and privacy breaches, as Dr. Davis had mentioned, the whole amount of radiation levels will go up exponentially. The amount of data that is going to be transferred and shared electronically and wirelessly and from machines to machines will go up exponentially. So I would submit that our security and privacy breaches will go up significantly. And right now, the industry is not paying for those breaches. The individual company or individual person has to actually pay for those. NASA and other organizations in the US have declared a major concern about the amount of satellites that are going to be input in space, tens of thousands of them that are going to actually cause harm and impact our ability to predict weather and predict hurricanes and prepare ourselves for the damage or to prevent the damage. I would argue that a moratorium, if this work was done quickly, it could actually be completed in a year. Any of the technology that's being talked about in 5G right now is actually not using 5G technology. The industry still has to do a lot more to define the specifications. So I would submit a moratorium for another year would actually not impact industry's ability to provide solutions in a safer environment. Next slide, please. We support wired 5G technology. We do not support all the implementations of wireless. Unfortunately, there's been a move where we only talk about wireless 5G and we only talk about smart devices that are wireless. And I think we need to shift, and I hope the committee will consider shifting the focus to a wired fiber solution first. Wireless radiation is more harmful. So a fiber doesn't emit radiation because it can't. Any wired solution is up to 100 times faster than wireless. It's far more secure. It's more reliable because you can actually, during a hurricane, your landline continues to work, whereas your cell phone will not. It's more resilient because you lay the fiber and cable one time and leave it. Far more protective of the security. There's a very strong paper and report written by Dr. Schleifer out of the University of Colorado, Shockley, sorry, who challenges the whole business case around the use of wireless technology. And finally, we know that a 5G cell tower will use 3 times more power than a 4G situation. And the IEEE has written papers that show that a wireless configuration uses up to 10 times more power and electricity than a wired solution. Next slide, please. I think that's opportunity for the committee to recommend that the Bermuda government educate Bermudians about the potential harm from wireless devices and use them more safe. There's been studies done in the US and in Canada that show 80% of people are not aware of warnings that are buried inside cell phones and other electronic devices, and 2/3 of them admit to holding that device against their body. There's been reports in the US, Canada, and France that if you hold a cell phone to your head, you actually break the safety guidelines that the manufacturers test their products for. Next slide, please. Dr. Davis talked briefly about protecting our children. There's significant recommendations on how to wire school systems, allowing the teacher control of the router, and in a way protecting the teacher and the student. So you download the information, go to offline mode, and have the students run the test or run the tutorial, and then they can get back online and upload the information. Unfortunately, we're going Wi-Fi in all the schools. We're subjecting our children and our teachers to Wi-Fi radiation, unnecessary Wi-Fi radiation, as for the whole time that they're in the school environment. I think there's a chance to protect our children. Any new school should have actually be completely wired. It's very inexpensive to wire it in a new school or any school that's going under a major renovation. Next slide, please. There are some implementations that need the wireless solution, but I would submit that the majority of solutions that are available and will be available can use a current 4G network. We have two anecdotally. We were in a school here in Canada. We were able to reduce the Wi-Fi exposure to the students by 90% by a couple of minor adjustments to the routers and the power densities. One of our advisors, board members, has a retail outlet. He was able to reduce the wireless radiation exposure to his team in his warehouse by over 100 times and less costly by just exploring different implementations and different routers that were available. Many applications where you have to actually, you can use a store and forward. So have a drone, for example, or a medical situation where you can store the information and transmit at once. We talked about smart utility meters that can have, there's some smart utility meters that are not continuously part of a grid, but can actually store that information and send it off to their network once or twice a day, as opposed to 1,000 times every second. I know I rushed through this. I want to respect my 10-minute limit. I'm 30 seconds over, and I would ask for any questions. As I say, there's extensive references. There's about 20 slides I have in the reference information. I do not intend to go through those, but I hope the committee will actually glance through those as you are preparing a report. So again, I thank you for the opportunity, and I don't know if there's questions or if you have to go to the next speaker, but again, I thank you. Sorry, you're muted, Denton.
I thought I unmuted myself. Thank you. I'm not muted on here.
You're good now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clegg. We appreciate your presentation, and the full slide deck will be available to the public. So we'll make sure that everyone can have access to that.